Hello, beautiful people. You're listening to Limitless, the podcast on faith, life, and growth. And I'm your host, Ifeanyiwa Morenike. How are you guys doing this lovely, lovely March? Hope you guys are good. I'm very good. Why? Because my mic is finally working. No glitches. We have light, 2 of our lights available. We're back in our normal setting. I don't know if you guys prefer that last setting. My face was literally like so close to the camera, I didn't even realize. But I thank God we are back to business. Satan has no hold on us. So the reason this topic came up is actually yesterday, although I've discussed tithing on my audio podcast before. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my friends and we were talking about tithing. And it was through that conversation I realized that there were some misconceptions about tithing, misunderstandings about tithing. Some Christians will even be resistant to tithe because they don't really understand what it's about, or they may be tithing wrongly. And it may not always be an issue of giving, sometimes it is. Some people are very open-handed, they have the heart to give, but because they don't understand tithing, they just don't do it. And that's a dangerous thing. First of all, what is tithing? Let's just start from the beginning. If you are a Christian who has never heard this word before, tithing is tenth. The literal meaning of tithe is tenth. It even sounds like tithe, tenth. 10% of your income, your earnings, everything that comes into your hand that is not like your capital. Any increase into your hand, that is your salary, your gifts, your income as a student, your business income, whatever you have that is an increase to you, you are supposed to tithe it. Malachi 3:8-9 says, "Will a mere mortal rob God? Yet you rob me." But you ask, how are we robbing you? In tithes and offerings. You are under a curse, your whole nation, because you are robbing me. So this was basically God telling the people, the children of Israel, that you not tithing and offerings one side, but we're going to focus on tithing, is actually attracting a curse. So as much as people usually say tithing is not compulsory, it's not compulsory for salvation. You will still be saved. You will still go to heaven without tithing, to be honest. As long as you know and love the Lord, you recognize Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior. But the thing about tithing is that it does have a significant impact on your financial capacity, your financial life as a Christian. God sees it as so significant that those that don't tithe are technically robbing God. Now, some people can say, oh, this is Old Testament. Yeah, that's true. Malachi is an Old Testament. And some may even argue it's a thing of the law, which we know is not a thing of the law because Abraham tithed before there was any law. He tithed to Melchizedek before there was any law. And Abraham was a very, very wealthy man. Although he was wealthy before tithing, he understood the financial principles of giving to God. And Abraham was not someone that limited himself to tithing. I mean, he was willing to give his entire son. As I said, it's not a thing of the law because Abraham did it before the law. And it's not just a thing of the Old Testament. Why do I say that? Jesus said, and this is in Matthew 23:23, this is where the Pharisees, they were tithing all, but this is where the issue was. "What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things." So it's literally what I was saying. It is not a passageway to heaven, but you should tithe. Jesus said you should tithe. And when you look at it, your heart posture as a Christian is God owns everything. When God has ownership of everything you own, you should not have any issue with giving him 10% of that. I was giving the example of Abraham. Abraham did not even limit himself to tithe. Tithe was small in Abraham's regard. Abraham was going to give his firstborn legitimate son to God. That is a heart of a giver. That is someone who can give anything when demanded, not demanded, to God. You have the heart to always give to God. You identify that this money I even have, this income I have, this gift I've received, this salary I'm receiving, it's only by the grace of God I'm receiving it. So he deserves that 10% as an honorarium to him. That is me honoring the income that he has given me, the blessing he has given me. I'm simply honoring him with 10%, but he owns 100%. That's why you have people that will do 20% tithe. There are people, millionaires, billionaires that do 90% tithe. There was a book I read years ago, my mom gave it to me, Spirit Driven Success by Danny, something's by a woman. This woman and her husband, back then, millionaires, they teach people about wealth. They're Christians, they teach people about wealth. They were paying, I don't want to say 90% tithe because I'm not sure, but they were paying way beyond 50% tithe. And they were millionaires. So imagine how much money that they were giving regularly. And they had more than enough to spend on themselves. That's the thing. There's no way you're going to be a tither. You're going to be consistent in your giving. You will be consistent in honoring God with tithes and offerings, and you won't have enough. God will make a way. Now, one key thing I want to understand here is tithing is just one financial principle in being financially wise as a Christian. That's one thing that we should really understand. Some people will do tithing and giving to church and but there are so many aspects of your life that you're neglecting. Not character-wise is one thing, like the Pharisees, but also in terms of saving, spending, investing, being a wise financial manager. Those aspects are lacking, and you feel like you can just lean on tithes and offering. No. but tithes and offerings are very significant. And the reason I'm emphasizing it in this episode is because it is very much neglected within the church of today, especially young people. I mean, some young people also have the idea. I remember a girl asked me this question last time I did the episode on my audio podcast. She asked, oh, I'm a student. Do I need to tithe? Because I'm not really making a salary like that. It's just what my parents give me. The practice of tithing is not salary dependent. It's not money dependent. It's not like, oh, once you get to a threshold, if you're making 100K, no. But once you're making 200K a month, bam, you start tithing. No, it's a principle for every single believer, every form of your income. So if your income or salary, quote unquote, is your pocket money from your parents, your monthly or weekly pocket money from your parents, you tithe it. It's a principle, no matter how small. For some of you, you'll be like, what does God want to do with my 1K tithe, my 10K tithe, my 20K tithe, my 5K tithe? It's not about what he wants to do with it. It's the principle behind it. Your principle and heart to give to God, to honor God with that 10%. Remember years ago, I joined this Bible study online, and I remember there was a principle they were teaching. And I think this is a principle that a lot of people teach. Doing further studies, you know that it's wrong. It's basically where people believe you can tithe, but not necessarily give your tithe to church. Now, I understand the principle behind it, and it shows that you still have the heart to give. At the end of the day, it shows that you have a good heart towards giving. You're not stingy. But that's not how the principle works. And God is a God of principle. So even though you're doing the right thing, if you're not following his principles, you won't get his results, period. And how do we know this? If we go to Malachi 3:10, we just read 8 to 9, we're going to read 10 now. It says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. That there may be in my house. So that's the house of God, the church. The church that you're serving at, the church that you are feeding from, that you are benefiting from, that you are learning from, you're growing from, that is where you pay your tithe. Can you give to charity? Definitely. Can you give to people that need? Definitely. But that's not tithe. Your tithe is 10% to your church. Offerings, the same way you give offerings to your church, you give tithes to your church. Now, it's a whole other thing if you have a general struggle towards tithing. For some people, it is actually a struggle. And let's be honest, I want you to examine the state of your heart. No one's watching you. I'm not judging you. I don't even know who you are listening to this, male, female. Examine the state of your heart. Do you struggle with the concept of tithing because you struggle with the concept of giving? It is very possible, but that the reason you are so against tithing, the reason you'd be like, all these pastors are eating our money, all these, they're spending it on this and that, is because you have a problem with the giving. Let me tell you, if you have an issue with giving now, if you have excuses now of, my salary is too small, my money is too small, I'm not getting much from my parents, if you can't do that now, so when you're making the millions, the tens of millions, maybe billions, how are you going to tithe then? Because it's way more. When you're tithing 1 million naira, 1 billion naira, hundreds of millions of naira, it's way more than tithing 10K, than tithing 30K, 40K, 50K. It's way more. Tithing 10K from 100K is nothing compared to tithing from 100 million. That's already 10 million naira. If you can't part with 10K from 100K, how will you part with 10 million naira? Do you know how much you could do with 10 million naira? Do you know how many things you can buy with 10 million naira? There were some cases that, I don't know if you guys have heard this kind of testimonies, God may even ask you to give all. That's what I'm saying, that do not even limit yourself to tithing, because there will be things that God will ask of you that will be a sacrifice. Something is not sacrifice if it doesn't take something from you. If it's too easy to give, it's not sacrifice. A sacrifice should be difficult to give. That's why it's a sacrifice. There's a reason God asked for Isaac and not Ishmael. One, he was not the legitimate son. And two, giving Ishmael is not as much as a sacrifice as giving Isaac. Isaac is a sacrifice. When God wants you to sacrifice, he wants to see the state of your heart towards him. Is he truly the owner of everything you have? Because how would you be keeping money from God that he blessed you with? He gave you the 100%. All he's asking for is 10, and you're still struggling with that. And know that that 10 you are giving him is to bless the 90%. If you read that place again, Malachi 3:10, where it says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be enough room to store it. That God will bless you to such an extent that you won't even be able to handle it. That's with the 90 that you have. 90 is a lot that you have left behind. God is going to bless it so abundantly that you won't even be able to store it. It even says, if you guys read further down, 11 and 12, it talks about how he's going to protect it from pests. Now, in their generation, a lot of them were farmers. They were doing things to do with harvesting and crops and etc. But in ours, that pest could be economic downturn, inflation, loss. Anything that could be a potential means or channel of attack towards your source of income, it is covered. Other versions, that one mentioned pest. Other versions mentioned devourer. Anything that could possibly devour that, your 90%, it is covered. Does that mean life will be perfect as a Christian? No. But there is a significant blessing that you receive as a tither that God has already promised for us. And again, check the state of your heart. If you are struggling to give to God, that's a problem. Because there is a chance that your God is not really God. Your God is Mammon. Mammon is the God of money. Satan. You make accumulation of wealth a god. to the point that ordinary 10% is too much for you to give to your Father in heaven who owns your life. He's just asking you to give money. What if you ask for more? What will you do then? Matthew 6:24 says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And if you really want to destroy that seed of mammon, that spirit of mammon that you have noticed that, why is it so hard for me to give? Not just to give to church, but to give to people. Why is it so hard for me to all these principles that I keep hearing, it just, it doesn't sit well with my spirit. Then I think money has become too much of an idol in your life. And you need to bring it down, destroy it completely. And money know who is boss. Money is a great servant, but a horrible master. It's a great tool to use, but if money starts using you, it's a problem. I believe by the grace of God on Limitless, for every single person watching, listening, this is a season of abundance for us. Not just abundance for ourselves, because at the end of the day, we live beyond ourselves, but abundance for us to be blessings to the nations. One thing that I really like about Joseph is when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, right, he was attracting blessings for Potiphar, yet he was broke. He didn't have money, he was a servant. But because of his integrity, his good character, he was a good representation of a Christian. Of course, he was a Jew at that time, but a child of God. Because of that, he was attracting blessings to Potiphar. And when his time came, because he was a good steward, because he was not a thief, because he was, he managed it well, he managed Potiphar's house well, his turn came. So be a good steward of your season right now. Yes, it's not much. Yes, you're just a student. Yes, you don't have a business. But when God sees that you have the heart to give, you're a tither, you are consistent in the principles of saving, investing, a wise manager of money. But you took God's money and used it wisely. There is no way you're not going to be blessed. This is just one of the principles, but it works, guys. It works. It comes with the promise of a blessing. And of course, a rejection of a curse. Automatically, once you have that blessing, that curse that was upon them because they were robbing God has been lifted. It comes with the promise of open heavens. Over that, you're 90% open heavens. You just notice things are working easier. Since I've started to apply these principles, and of course, one day I'll be a billionaire. But with the money I have now, no matter how much it is, as I started to apply these principles, guys, it has been working. It has been working. I will not lie to you. I'm passionate about the topic because I've seen the results in my own life of following God's financial principles of your life. It works. Try it first and be consistent with it. Be disciplined with it. Have the right heart towards it. Another thing I want to mention is don't tithe because you feel obligated to God's blessings. No. You're trying to, dupe God that, you don't follow anything else, or you don't really serve him from your heart. But let me share tithe because he said, if I tithe, it'll bring blessings. No, you're not entitled. Just show your heart towards God, his principles, his way, his ownership over your life and your belongings. All right, guys, so I hope you have gained from this episode. You've learned something, you've gained something. If you have someone that doubts tithing, they don't believe tithing, you should be tithed. Pastor will do this part. What a pastor does with your money is not your business. And if you really don't trust your pastor that much, why are you in that church? Change churches. Go to a church where you trust your pastor. You know that he will use your tithes in accordance with the will of God for what God intends for him to use it for. If you have a pastor that you don't trust, why are you under his ministry? Because anything he speaks from that pulpit cannot work for you. Any prayer he prays cannot work for you. You don't believe in his anointing. You don't trust him. Change your church. So that's not an excuse. But if you have a friend, you have anybody who has any doubts on tithing or wants to get a better understanding of tithing, you can send in this video. Make sure, because you guys are not doing this. I don't know why I'm seeing 100 views but 16 likes. What's that? That's not fair now. So guys, if you're watching this, please leave a like, leave a rating, leave a review if you're listening to this online, and make sure you comment something sweet, but be sure to interact with this so that YouTube can send it out to other people that want to learn more about this topic. All right, guys, I'll be with you guys next week for the next episode. Have an amazing day, have an amazing week, have an amazing month, have an amazing year, have an amazing 2026. Bye, guys. See you next week.